Good evening, and welcome to all our Hampstead Garden Suburb friends and everyone else who has tuned in to what I hope will be a really, really meaningful and interesting conversation with a lady that I'm so terribly excited about interviewing. I first heard about Judge Ruchie a couple of years ago when a friend of mine sent me a documentary she made for the OU. And I was just blown away. I was so taken by her accomplishments, her charisma, to the extent that I just spoke about her all the time, constantly at home. And my husband, Avromi, heard me talking about Ruchie Freier this, Ruchie Freier that, you have to see this, this is so amazing. And the joke in the house is that anytime he wants to make me smile, he actually calls me Ruchie. So I think before we introduce Ruchie and before we start this conversation, I would just like to give in a nutshell a short version of all her accomplishments, because there are so many. So Ruchie Freier is a civil court judge in New York, the very first Hasidic woman who has ever held such a position. And let me tell you how she got to this stage. So in high school, she did a course in legal stenography. And then when she got married, she started as a legal secretary, and she slowly built herself up to become a paralegal. And she worked in a company. She was very happy, and she started getting a little antsy when she realized that many of the lawyers she was working for were now younger than her. And she had this amazing Yahoo moment, which we'll let her share with you because it's amazing. And at the age of 30, with 4 children, she started studying law. And she decided to take it slowly, that she wouldn't compromise on her family life. And she got a Bachelor of Science in Political Science. And at the age, and then went on to law school and passed the New York State Bar in 2006. She worked in the office of Hillary Clinton as an intern. And then in 2016 announced that she was going to be running for civil court judge. Now, in the USA, the way you become a judge is you have to be voted in. So this is a mammoth task. And she did this with determination and with lots and lots of support. And she was actually sworn in high court, in the courtroom, to the song God Bless America, in none other than Yiddish. She was assigned to the New York Civil Court, but then she worked in the criminal court for 2 years, and then is now back as a civil judge. And this is a great, great accomplishment. We are going to try and fit in whatever we can in this interview. But I just want to also tell you, before you meet this wonderful lady, that she does quite a little bit on the side. In 2005, she established a non-profit charity to help poor families. In 2008, she was the founder of a program for kids at risk. And on 2011, which probably is what impresses me the most, she qualified as an EMT and then trained an additional 18 months to become an advanced paramedic. All the time, she was doing pro bono legal services in Borough Park. So I'm just tired even talking about everything that she's accomplished, but I'm trying to analyze what it is that took me to choose Ruchie Freier as a role model. And I think it's very clear. To me, it's the idea that she was able to accomplish so much, or she is able to accomplish so much, and yet she hasn't compromised on who she is and the values that she has. And to me, that is the most praiseworthy and the most impressive part of everything she's done and all her accomplishments. So without further ado, I'd proudly like to present to you from New York, Judge Ruchie Freier, who we're very, very excited about sharing some time with us. Judge Ruchie Freier.
Hi, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, it's all the truth and said in short. So thank you for allowing us to be able to talk to you. How's everything?
It's my privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. How's everything?
I'm hearing a little bit of an echo when I speak, but if you hear me clear, then it's okay.
I can hear you. I'm okay. I can't hear an echo.
Okay. Well, I think it's better now. It's good.
Okay, great. How's everything in New York with COVID?
Well, with COVID, well, actually, it was really very difficult between Purim and Pesach. That was a real hard time for us. I could say that now, thank God, Baruch Hashem, I think there are a lot less new cases, if any at all. So things have calmed down and stabilized, but people still walk around with the masks and the gloves, but many people don't. But I hope with God's help that we're over the curve over here.
Well, it's an advantage for us because I think, generally speaking, I don't think we'd be able to get to you for an interview at 3:30 in the afternoon. So
absolutely not. Yes, we're working remotely now, so I have work piled up, and I have a conference call that I have to do after we finish with this interview. But you're right. This is the silver lining behind the cloud of COVID, that I can do these Zoom conferences with the most wonderful communities. And I've heard wonderful things about your kehillah, your community, and I'm really so proud to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I spoke about you as being my role model, and I wanted to know whether you could share with the audience, do you have a role model? Is there someone who inspired you and continues to inspire you?
That's a great question, because people always ask me who my role model is, and I'm very open about it, that for a long time I didn't have a role model, and it was very challenging for me because I knew that what I wanted to do was perfectly permitted by the Torah, but I didn't have a role model until I found a book it's called Carry Me in Your Heart by Pearl Benish. And it's a book about Sarah Shanira, who is my role model. And for those of you who don't know her, she is the founder of the Beis Yaakov movement, which is the school for Jewish girls. She lived between the two world wars, and she was a seamstress. And she realized that Europe was being swept by all these new isms like communism and socialism, and that while the boys had a yeshiva where they would study, the girls had no Jewish schools. And she wanted to start one. And so the school that I went to was called Beis Yaakov, the same name as the school that she founded. Mm-hmm. And my teachers were some of her original students. And then we learned a lot about Sarah Shanira and how she was a seamstress and how she was sewing clothes for the body and the soles were unclad. But what I didn't know, they didn't teach us that in school, or maybe I was absent when they did, that she had a lot of opposition. And I learned from reading that book that very often when you want to do something that's really good, it's going to be hard and there'll be opposition. But you have to still believe that God is the one that controls the world, not the naysayers. And then I read a profound lesson that she taught her students in this book. And the lesson that she taught her students was Jewish daughters should always wear a dress with 2 pockets. And today my jacket has 2 pockets. And in one pocket you carry the verse from Psalms that King David wrote, and I'll say the verse in Hebrew and I'll translate it. Kol kvuda bas melech pnima means your modesty, whatever modesty means to you, your innermost modesty, that's your badge of pride. Carry it in your heart with your head up high, because your modesty is what identifies you as a Jewish daughter. But girls, she said, in your other pocket you carry the verse, Hashem Torah, which means there comes a time to act. And when you see that people have trampled Torah values, you stand up and be leaders, and people will follow you. And once I read that, I said, I have my role model. It's perfectly fine to be a leader and to be a proud Jewish woman. So in terms of my role model as a woman who was a Hasidic woman who lived before me, who really brought about change, I don't think I hold a candle to Sarah Shanira, but she was my role model.
Beautiful.
Then when I actually started law school, I went to Brooklyn Law School, and one of the very popular professors was Professor Aaron Tversky. Mm-hmm. And I happened to know him well because he's part of the Bubba community, which is where my husband belongs to. And his children are like friendly with my family. His grandchildren are the same age as my children. So when I started law school and I saw him walking through the corridors, and I'm seeing a chassid with a long beard and the black coat, I said, wow, for me, it was so heartwarming. It made me feel like, okay, there is a place for me here. And then when I started to see how hard it was to get into his classes, I say, wow, this person really is making an impact in the law. And then you would have to hear the reaction of the students that were in his class. One student told me, she said to me, Rachel, if all Jewish men are like Professor Tversky, then I'll convert. So those are my 2 role models.
Amazing.
A chassid in the law
Amazing, because there's so many preconceptions about Hasidim and Hasidic life, and that's why it's so enlightening and so inspirational to hear positivity and lovely people who are role models. And I'm a romantic, so I need to know this question. I want to know how instrumental your husband was. You know, we very often hear the verse, behind every great man is a great woman. I want to know, is there a great man behind a great woman? Would you have been able to do this without him?
Absolutely. My husband gets a lot of credit. There's no way I could have accomplished what I did without his help. Everything from going to law school to running a campaign. You know, a lot of people make a big deal about me being the first Hasidic woman to run for public office. But really, my husband, he's really the real winner over here, because he's the first Hasidic man who not only supported his right to run for public office, he financed my entire campaign. I maxed out on all of his credit cards. He ran around getting me public support. He ran around to rabbis getting their endorsements. He didn't stop until I won that election. So, truth be told, he gets a huge amount of credit for where I am today.
And can you share with us the Yahoo moment you had, when it was, when you actually decided, no, I have to go further?
So really, it was a very slow journey. It's funny because I'm very often asked to condense 30 years of my life in 30 minutes, but it really wasn't something that was like one day I woke up and I said, this is it. From when I was a little kid, I was always the family advocate. I was always the one, if my mother needed someone to, to take care of my sisters, getting a higher wage in day camp, she would say, Ruchie, call the head counselor. So I was always the little lawyer of the family. So my dream was first to be able to be a lawyer, but I knew that wasn't really possible back in the 80s.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to lead you to is your husband, because when I read about you and when I watched about you, there was a Yahoo moment in his career which made you decide that that's when you wanted to jump on your career. Is that correct?
Right. So initially, I thought that he would go to law school and vicariously live my dream for me. Mm-hmm. And then he went to college, and then it was at his college graduation where I sat there thinking to myself, now it's my turn. Now I have to do it.
Yeah.
At the end, he went on to become a mortgage broker, and because law wasn't his passion, but it was when I realized that it was my turn, with God's help and his support and our family support, we were able to make it happen. But it was a slow journey, but that was the turning point. That was the watershed. And right. I was 30 years old then. Mm-hmm. We had our first three children were born. And when I started Touro College during the first semester, our fourth child was born. And I did it very slowly. I didn't get on any accelerated fast tracks. I still wanted to cook. I wanted to bake challah for Shabbos. I didn't want to compromise any of those values that were important to me. So I did it very slowly. And that's why my undergrad took me 6 years. And then law school part-time was 4 years.
Amazing.
That was my 10-year plan.
That's what I was leading to, because when I heard about you deciding at his graduation, now it's my turn, I felt fantastic, amazing. And what about the whole approach to secular education in Borough Park and in your community and the Rabbonim? Would you say that you've had the support? Would you say that you've influenced other young girls? How do you think it's affected, life where you live?
So when it comes to higher education, the Hasidic community is very, very strong in our values, and we're nonconformists. Mm-hmm. But while we don't change, opportunities changed. So once it became possible to go to college that was going to accommodate Shabbos and the holidays and let us not have exams on Friday nights, then it became more acceptable. When I started, though, people really weren't sure, like, okay, Ruchie, why are you doing this? Are you happy? And I say, sure, I'm happy. There was this fire burning inside that I have to do it. I have to prove that I don't have to choose one over the other. I can have a profession, I could study law, and I can still have my fine from religious family. So that was my own personal journey. I didn't think it would be something that people would want to interview me about. It was just my desire. And while I'm living my dream and doing it slowly, the community sees that my children are growing up. They see that I'm still living the life of a Hasidic family. So that kind of made people accept what I'm doing. And in terms of now helping others, absolutely. I mean, one of my interns last year was another grandmother from Borough Park, just like myself. She said to me that she never would have gone to law school if not for having learned about my story. And then she wanted to be my judicial intern in court. And now she's practicing criminal defense work as a practicing attorney. And also, her husband has a shul, and they live smack in Borough Park.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Wow. And the other thing I was thinking about was, you did 2 years in criminal court. And, we believe the Jewish view is that the way you act has an impact on your character, and what you're involved in has an effect on you as a person. Do you think, you must have dealt with a lot of emotionally disturbing issues and some horrible things. Do you feel it affected you as a person, being in such a difficult situation day in, day out, seeing really sort of negative and serious abuse and issues and problems?
So it's interesting because I'm asked that question quite often. And, it's people ask me, so how do you go home from work and not bring your work home with you? And it's really the reverse. I don't take my work home with me. I bring my home to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's my upbringing. It's those Torah values that actually give me the strength and the grounding to be able to continue with my job day to day. I have the best seat in the house, because in America, in every courtroom, above the judge are the words, "In God we trust," and that always puts things into perspective. It's really God that runs the world.
Amazing, amazing. And I'm coming up to my question, which I'm the most intrigued in. You're a paramedic, and just on the side, with everything going on in your life, you decided to be a paramedic, to train as a paramedic, to train as an EMT actually first, and then as a paramedic. Firstly, I wanted to know what spurred this on. What made you decide, with your full life, with your family, with your grandchildren, with your baking challahs every Friday, with you constantly striving for bigger and better, how did you juggle this?
Okay, so let's press the rewind button just a little bit. And it really started out when I started law school. So there were naysayers along my entire journey. I'll never get through college. I'll never get into law school. If I do, I'll never finish. I'll never pass the bar. Even if I did, I'll never have any clients. But I always said if that God runs the world, and if he wants it to happen, it's going to happen. But when I started law school, that's when I was really nervous, because that was my first step into a complete academic, secular, liberal environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I made my deal with God, and I said, God, please help me get through law school without compromising my standards. And if you do that, then when I graduate, I'll help your children that need help. And God wasted no time in testing me. Very shortly after I graduated, I found out about kids at risk, primarily boys in the Hasidic community. I advocated for them, and I really put things into place until other people came in and took over. And then I got involved with helping women who were a group of EMTs and doulas. They were labor coaches who wanted to serve other women. And I decided that I was going to help them. And in order to help them, I felt I needed to be an effective leader. So I became an EMT with my mother. And then I said, I love this course. I'm going to go on to become a paramedic, because if there's a higher level, if there's a next step, I want to take the next step. That's basically in a nutshell how it all happened.
And how long was the training for, and how many hours? How do you manage to juggle it all?
The day has 24 hours, and I just pray to God to help me do whatever I can during those 24 hours. But it was really amazing. It was amazing. There's an expression in Yiddish, was man tut für jener, what you do for others, you really do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And it was these two projects, working with kids at risk and becoming a paramedic, that really helped me on the bench. And when I was in criminal court and I had to deal with these young defendants from all different communities, I realized that they were so similar to the kids at risk that I was counseling here. And the same way that I was able to connect to these young Hasidic boys, I was able to connect to these young defendants from all the other communities here in New York City. And I would look at them, and sometimes they would cry when I would tell them, never give up on yourself. You can always improve. The concepts of, there's a God that runs the world. We have potential. We can do tshuva. All those concepts that I was raised with were the concepts that were helping me. And then when it would come to the other side, where you would have the prosecutor that wanted to say, well, look at all the injuries that were sustained by the victim. We have photos, Judge. I'm sure you don't want to see them. I would say, I'm a paramedic. I want to see those photos. So it was that those charitable contributions that I was making, I thought for others, would actually help me when I was on the bench.
Beautiful. Wow. But then my big question is, it's amazing, and you obviously have so much energy, and we spoke on the phone, and you told me how you try to make challahs every Friday, you made your dinners every night, you did things slowly, you prioritized your family. But how do you juggle? Do you have a set amount of time? Do you have a time that you block for your family?
Well, I certainly try to make time for my family. I do. You'd be surprised how much time could be spent on things that are not important. And that, like I try to pray 3 times a day. And I have a great story about my mincha prayer. That's the afternoon prayers. It takes only like 10 minutes to say that prayer, but you have to just make time for it. And when I started law school, I decided that I needed to make it clear to all my fellow students that I'm from the Hasidic community. And I had to stay grounded and make sure that I don't give up on my mincha prayer. And I did also outreach on campus. So those were my 2 private personal projects. I would organize the professors that were Jewish, even if they weren't religious at all, before every holiday to share their stories. I would bring in my kids and we'd make a Passover Seder, or we made a Purim costumes and Purim baskets or Hanukkah latkes. And the security guards would help me set that up. And when I first started law school, I was looking for a private place where I could say my prayers. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not embarrassed or shy. You could find me praying with my sitter at the airport, on the train, in the train station, wherever I am. If I wanted time to pray, I'll pray. So a student that was graduating there, I asked her, could she recommend a private place for me to daven and to pray mincha? And she told me that the cafeteria has a staircase behind the staircase. And if I would daven and pray over there, nobody would see me. So that's what I did. I did my outreach. I did my prayers, and everything was fine. It was right before graduation. And I wanted to thank the security guards who were always so helpful when I was doing my outreach projects. They would keep the lights on in the student cafeteria, help me lug those big crates of my props. So it was before graduation, and I went to thank them, these 2 polite African-American security guards. And I said, Clyde, I'm going to miss you guys. I can't believe 4 years have passed, and I'm graduating law school now, and you were so helpful with all my props. And said, yeah, Rachel, and we're never going to forget you and your little book. And I said, my little book? My law school books weigh more than me. What are you talking about? And they said, oh, we used to see you on the security camera every day praying with your little book. And I never realized that staircase behind the staircase was a fire exit with a security camera facing me head on for 4 years while I prayed my mincha prayer.
Incredible. Incredible. That is my favorite story ever. That's amazing. But coming back to what I said to you about the family dynamics, we had a lovely chat before this conversation, and I asked you on a personal level how you juggled it all. And what I liked, what you spoke to me about, was the way you got your children involved in every single step of the way. And I'd love you to share with everyone how you did get them involved and how they felt a part of everything. Because to me, I think that is really, really unique. There are many people who go out and pursue a career, but to be able to include your children, that they feel part of it and they feel proud of it, is really incredible. And even the way they got you voted in. Right. You had to get the numbers to be voted in. So to me, I think that is absolutely so impressive, and I'd love you to share with everyone how you include your family in making it a teamwork, that there would never be any resentment about what.
So I decided that in order for my children not to feel like I'm just leaving them when I'm going to school or going to work, I included them in everything that I do. So every child had a chance to come to sit in a college class with me. And if I did like class projects, like I would have one of my kids participate. For example, when we had to do a demonstrative speech, I had my little son come in and do origami. We both put on kimonos and he did the class presentation. If I made a Hanukkah party, I had another kid come with a Casio and play the keyboard. And then when I started law school, they also had a chance to come and participate in my outreach events, because I realized that I'm telling my kid, Mommy's going to school. He might think that the yellow school bus is taking me to something that's similar to what he does. So I felt that making them a part of it was going to make them feel like they're included. And then when I studied for the bar exam, I had them color my study cards. So each kid had a different set of cards, and they colored, made pictures. And then when I was studying, it would be easy for me to memorize. I said, oh, this is the card that Shlomi colored, or this is the card that Shandy colored. So they were always a part of it. And then when I actually ran for public office, you think I ran? The Freier family ran for public office. And it was a sight to be seen. These young Hasidic men with the long black coats and the long black side curls and black hats, waving the flyers, vote for Freier, says my mama, in Yiddish, vote for Freier, it's my mother. And the people saying, are you serious? It's your mom? Like, who is she? But, and until today, I want you to know that every flyer that goes out with my name, my son finds it. Mommy, we have to put this together, make archives for you. They're so involved in it. So it's really a family project, and it only adds to what I do.
I think that must be the trick, to include them. Amazing. And you even told me about when you were actually sworn into court, about how your daughters, I think, put on your robe and they walked with you. You know, it's about empowering them to feel part of it. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah. So when my induction was, at that time, my youngest are a set of twins, and they were both in seminary in Israel at that time. And the first daughter, I have 3 boys and 3 girls. So the 3 girls were all in Israel when I was supposed to be inducted. And I said, I cannot have my induction without them being here. So I actually flew them all in. And the school didn't understand, like, is someone getting married? Like, why are you bringing the girls home? And I said, no, this is like something that happens only once in a lifetime. And it's not a wedding, but I need to have my girls with me. And I prevailed. I had them all there. And then when the robe was put on me, I had my 3 daughters come put it on for me, because they were the ones that marched with me down my law school graduation. They were always by my side.
So wonderful. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, this might sound like a really silly question, but I just think that if anyone's going to have further aspirations, it's going to be you. Are you content now? Are you happy? You're doing your bit? You're juggling it all? Any further aspirations?
So there's contentment, and then there's complacency. So I'm content, but not complacent. So I'm always happy with what Hashem sends my way, but I hope with Hashem's help that I could go higher in the law. And you know what? The Supreme Court's a beautiful place. So there's always a higher goal, something greater to achieve.
We're going to be cheering you on. Perhaps there might be the first Jewish Hasidic president of America. Who knows? The sky's the limit. Who knows?
Listen, I always say, if Hashem wants something to happen, it's going to happen. We just have to put our efforts in and know that good things really come hard. But that should not prevent anybody from pursuing their dreams. And for me, what was so important was to know that it was possible, that I didn't have to give one up. It wasn't mutually exclusive to have a profession. I don't like to use the word career. I say profession, because career has a connotation that your kids are on the back burner. Right. So for me, it was so important to show, yes, you can have it all. You can have your religious values intact, and you can be proud of them, because some people try to be very observant, but be very anonymous about it. And for me, it was very important to be very upfront and open, because remember, I'm going to meetings and I'm not shaking hands with men. And now when the whole COVID thing happened, it was amazing, because my friends were saying, oh, we learned from Judge Freier, it's okay not to shake hands. So now when you have the whole world not shaking hands, they all remember that I was the one that showed them first that it's okay not to shake hands.
Amazing. And you've actually got a funny story about shaking hands. if you want to
Oh
share.
yeah,
That's a
so
great story.
that's a great story. So my husband and I, before I sat on the bench, shared office space. In fact, this was my old law office sitting right here, and my husband's office is down the hall. And
Mhm.
he's a mortgage broker, and he would recommend clients for me. I would recommend clients to him with full disclosure, so it was perfectly legal. And
Right.
I was doing a real estate closing. My clients were Hasidim, and the bank attorney knew my husband, knew me, so he knew who we were. He knew
Mhm.
the rules. And we go into the conference room for the closing, and very exclusive in Long Island. And everyone in the room is wearing black. All the Hasidim are there. And the bank attorney, a very nice Irish Catholic gentleman, comes in and he starts to shake everyone's hand. And he comes to me. And I said, John, you know I can't do that. So he gives me this big, huge hug and says, Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry. I forgot. Now, had there been a hole underneath that table, I would have gone right beneath the table. But anytime I have to like break the ice with a handshake, I just share that story because that's just like a classic.
It's great. It's a great, great story. So I'm just going to end off just with one last question, which is that I just want to try and understand and help our viewers to understand how you were able to adapt culturally. Did you find it hard adapting, going to school, going to the outside world, doing the bar, going into court? How did you find it being in the outside world and the secular world? Was it a big eye-opener? Was it a big adjustment to you?
So I could say that my education,
Mm-hmm.
having phenomenal teachers, really helped me, really prepared me. Um, the more I went out, the farther out I would go, the more I would appreciate and value what I have at home. So I would take the F train to the subway and go to the city. And then I would come home and I would say, thank God I live in this great community. Thank God I'm part of this community. And it was for me, it's as if all of a sudden it became a privilege. It's a privilege, something that we all take for granted, and we really shouldn't. It's really special. And that was the effect that it had on me, as opposed to all the naysayers who said, Ruchie, you're going to go out into the big wide world. You're going to compromise your values. You're not going to remain as committed to the religion or towards Hasidism. And it was just the opposite, the joy of Hasidism, seeing everyone together, going to a synagogue and praying together. This COVID, when they say you can't pray together, for for me to see my husband not running to shul for the minyan is profound. It's so profound because these are things that it's not just something that we do because we have to. We do these things with love and appreciation. And now that we can't do it during COVID, we all realize that these are things that it's really very special. And these are the things that gave me the strength and keep me grounded. As opposed to holding me back, it propelled me to being able to navigate through the secular world.
Amazing. Because what I found very emotional was when I asked you about how often you hold your radio, and you said to me that you actually were holding the radio on the bench before.
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah.
My emergency radio? This one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so on the bench in court. And I said, what, in court? And you said to me, no, you just had that's your priority, that you have to be there when people need you.
Yes. So generally speaking, when I'm at work, I don't have my radio on the bench with me, but
Right.
any other time I always carry it with me. But during COVID, I told my supervisor that I have to keep it with me the whole entire time, and she totally understood. Totally.
Amazing. So I think my friends and everyone who's watching will agree that you understand why Judge Ruchie is my role model, and you have been so inspirational and such a lesson to all of us about literally climbing the mountains and achieving our dreams and being able to do that without ever compromising. Having your cake and eating it. You are literally eating that cake and like no one I know. And I just think it's just unbelievable. And I feel so inspired and I feel so grateful that you've been able to share your story with so many people. There's so many other things I'd like to discuss with you. I'd like everyone else to hear. But I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of Hands of God and Suburb Synagogue and everyone else who's watching for being such a role model, for being a trailblazer, for being a trailblazer for women and for men, showing men how they can support their woman to achieve greatness, and also to be able to maintain a wonderful, loving home and wonderful relationships with one's children without resentment. I just think it's unbelievable. So I want to say thank you so much, and it's been a real pleasure. And I wait for the day to actually meet you in person.
Likewise, and for everybody that's listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and believe in yourselves, believe in your potential, believe that God really runs the world and he can make everything happen. And it's great to have a Rebbitzin that you can always reach out to, because that was very important to me.
I'm not a Rebbitzin, but that's fine. Thank you. I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to. Thank you so much. Thank you, and wishing you a good Shabbos.
Thank you. You all the best to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.